Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Hello, Patrick Donoghue here, news editor with the Irish Farmers Journal. Last week's Balmoral Show was a success, with huge crowds enjoying a day out in the sun. But the stands selling dairy equipment were very quiet, and the milk price crisis was evident among members of the industry. Irish Farmers Journal Northern Ireland dairy contributor James Campbell caught up with Caffrey dairy advisor Ian McCluggage and Cormac Cunningham, a dairy farmer and director of Strathroy Dairies.
Starting off with Ian, on the technical side, Ian, how do you see things for farmers, just technically at the moment? What are the issues they're facing here in Northern Ireland?
I think it's tremendous that the weather has changed. We look back to just over 10 days ago, there was actually snow on the ground in North Antrim, to the weather that Balmoral has enjoyed with temperatures in the high teens, low 20s. And as always, grass is a remarkable crop. It has absolutely jumped, and now is a critical time for farmers, against the backdrop of poor milk prices, to make maximum use of quality grass and forage. Walk your farm, know what covers are in front of your cows, make cows work hard at grass, and get geared up, if you haven't already, get geared up to make quality silage over the next few days.
What's the mood of farmers, Ian? Everyone knows that milk prices we thought they were low this time last year, and now they're even worse. Obviously there's a lot of doom and gloom about. How are you finding it with farmers, and how to encourage them to improve their technical efficiency when they're really feeling pretty down?
There's no doubt, put a base price of 16.5, 17 pence. That sets a real tone. But I think you've got to look at your own business, and key to that is knowing the results for your farm. I mean, one of the key areas that we'll be promoting farmers, we've just finished the milk year, finishing the 31st of March 2016. So benchmark. Know your figures, know what you're doing well, know where improvements can be, and the benchmarking results clearly show the range between the top and the bottom 25% is you're talking about 8 to 10 pence a litre. So there is probably 4 or 5 pence for many farmers within the farm gate. Key aspects of that is certainly grassland management, herd fertility, and components, compositional quality. I think we're seeing a range in milk price of somewhere between 3 and 4 pence a litre, and an awful lot of that goes back to components. It takes a long time getting there, and perhaps farmers can be despondent and saying, that's X number of years, but you've got to start. And the clear evidence is those farmers who made the start, and genetics provide opportunities. The new genomics and the bulls that are available provide the opportunity to make really good breeding decisions. And also, it's evident the bulls that deliver components also deliver some of the other aspects that you want, whether that be fertility and longevity and legs and feet. So this is an important time of the year to be breeding cows, the month of May and June for your cow that's going to calve next February, March, April time. So make those right breeding decisions and do the simple things. At this moment in time, every 0.1, 0.2 pence a litre will make a difference at current milk prices.
Thanks, Ian, and I want to switch over to Cormac Cunningham here now. Ideally, Cormac, first of all, as a farmer yourself and as a producer of milk, you've heard the messages that Ian has. What would be your messages as a producer to fellow producers, and what messages are you taking on board yourself?
Yeah, Ian hit all the nail on the head with the most important decision to be made. On the AI side of it, on the breeding side, it's just as efficient to pick the right type of bulls now. It doesn't cost any more to do it, and although milk prices are on the floor, those key decisions will not cost you anymore, but will be standing to the farmers in 2 to 3 years' time when those young heifers hit the ground. It's a very difficult time for all producers. I'm one of them. The farms I'm involved in, one of them is a grass-based one, the other is a high input system. Neither of those farms can make money under current milk prices. There's no shying away from that. So all we can do on both farms, we look at them completely differently. We look at each one as an individual. We look at the figures for that farm, as Ian said, inside the farm gate, and try to manage that farm as efficiently as we can, and try to lose as little money as we possibly can to get through to the other side. Are there any green shoots starting to show on the dairy markets? Debatable, yes, some there, and then there's naysayers saying the opposite, so it's difficult to know. At the conference here this morning, at the breakfast this morning, some very, very good points made by some of the speakers. The overhang of the powder on the market, is significant. I think something needs to be done with that rather than let that overhang the market for much longer. To use it for some other purpose, whether it's as a protein source to feed animals, would, I think, be much more effective than anything else anybody has suggested to date to try and change the sentiment of the commodity traders, which really is what will drive milk prices in the next 12 months. If we can change sentiment, we can maybe get some improvement.
Yeah, you mentioned sentiment and you mentioned milk price. I have to ask you the question about milk price with your processing hat on. Everyone knows that the liquid milk markets are returning more than the commodity markets at the minute, or are they? Come back at me, I see you raise your eyebrows. So what do you think, if a farmer says to you, you're in the liquid market, you could pay more for milk than you are. I know you're paying more than most other processors, but you could pay even more. What do you say?
The liquid market is extremely competitive, like any of the rest of them. When milk prices are falling and you're in a long-term contract of a year and you've locked in at a higher milk, at a milk price, say a farm gate price of 25 pence per litre, and the market drops, the price of the milk drops, and you're locked into that's okay. But when we have on a downturn, which has gone on as long as this, as we renegotiate new contracts, they renegotiate it at very, very low milk prices. The people who we negotiate with look at the auctions, they know the price of milk, they know the pressures that we are under, they know the prices we're able to buy milk at, and they calculate that. And if we're not competitive and aren't coming in with very, very tight prices, we will lose the business. I mean, there's an article in the Farmers Journal only just yesterday that showed that Strathroy actually did lose some business, and we know we lost it down to pricing. Now, yes, we're paying our farmers better than the rest. It doesn't mean our price is good. Our price does not allow even our farmers to produce milk and not make a loss. But no, the fact of the liquid market, the advantage in it is that there's cash flow. We buy the milk today, we get it sold normally the next day, and we're paid for it within, well, at very worst, probably about 6 weeks. So that's much better than having to put it into storage and wait for a market to appear for it. So yes, it's good from a cash flow point of view, but the competition is fierce because we're competing with people who are buying milk cheaper than us, and they want to take our markets off us because they'd rather do that than put milk into powder in a store.
There's one other subject I want to cover with both of you, and that is that there's a move here amongst the lobby group in Northern Ireland saying the only solution to this problem is to get everyone to cut production, and it sounds like a nice idea in theory. Do you, either of you, think that this has any can you see a way that this can be made to happen?
Currently, Northern Ireland's producing 2.3 billion litres, Southern Ireland 5.5 to 6 billion litres. You put that against some of the key players, Germany 25 billion plus litres of annual production, France somewhere similar. What we do in this island of Ireland on cutting production will have negligible impact. This would have to be certainly on a Western European basis, and that would be Ireland, UK, and some of the northern regions of production. It's just simply we going along. I know a lot of regions fought hard to remove milk quotas. This is the first year that Europe was functioning without milk quotas, and now to come round and say that we want to go back to milk quotas, I just don't think the politics of the situation will allow that to happen. I think I want just to make comment on something that Cormac said there. He used a key phrase, cash flow, and it is concerning. James asked what could you do technically, and we talked about grassland management, something you can do technically from a business perspective. The banks say there are still too many people going in looking for an extension to overdraft or looking for new facilities without actually the figures to say what do we need, what is the cash flow implications of current milk prices. You need to do a cash flow.
And on the question of everyone practically voluntarily limiting production, or what do you think, Cormac?
Yes, the idea has a lot of merit. It would have, again, I talked about sentiment earlier on, that if there was a European-wide reduction, it would have the effect that's necessary. To actually get it into place, I think it would be very, very difficult to do. To get European-wide solidarity to do it, I think would be very difficult to do. But unfortunately, I think that a reduction in European production will happen whether we want it or not, simply because farmers will go out of business.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Things were brighter on the beef side, according to Jim Jobson, Chief Executive of Northern Ireland-based meat processor Dumbia. The Irish Farmers Journal's digital editor Thomas Hubert met him on the company stand at the show.
Well, Thomas, it's been fantastic weather here for 3 days. We've had really, really nice summer weather. Maybe that has put our suppliers in good form, but surprisingly, even though there's a very challenging marketplace out there, they seem to be in fairly good form, and maybe it's because all sectors seem to be under problems. They seem to be in really, really good form compared to the environment they're in.
You're talking about these challenges in the market. For your outlets specifically, what are you seeing, and what should farmers know when they're selling their cattle to Dunbia?
Farmers should say that the retailer has a very, very challenging place they're in as well. There's a lot of competition from the discounters. There's less money to go around from the consumers paying to the end user, and so that down the chain there just seems to be less money to go around.
There's also the specifications, the choices retailers would make. We've heard Tesco say they were getting out of young bulls. How does that play with your own supply and your own processing chain?
This doesn't have a significant amount of change to us, in that for years we have been discouraging men from using young bulls. We have found always in the past that some young bulls eat very well, some don't eat so good. So there's an inconsistency in the eatability of it. So we have constantly said we don't like young bulls. But if Tesco decide not to use it, it'll make a big impact on the marketplace, and there'll be more of that about. So there could be a bigger differential in the price of it, as no one really wants it.
Overall, how do you see the price trending in the next few months? There's very much a fear that it's on a downward trend. Would you agree with that?
I'm not sure. I think it's a lot of, like any marketplace, it's all supply and demand. I think for the next few weeks we're definitely going to see farmers out doing their work in the fields, and you may see a rise in the price just through lack of supply. But going forward, I'll be confident that cattle shouldn't make much less than they're making, and it's not in our interest to see. We prefer to see cattle at a men being very, very profitable, and it gives more to the food chain. But it depends just on the numbers around.
Another thing coming down the line is this Brexit referendum. How would that affect your business, and do you have a position on this issue?
We don't particularly have an official position, but personally I always like to see to keep things the same if possible. I think if Britain exits, it leaves us, we do not know what the future holds, and there's no guarantees of what way the British government will react to it. So personally I'd like to see things stay the same, but whatever happens, as far as we're concerned, there's 65 million people in the UK need to be fed, so hopefully we'll still be processing meat for them.
Another piece of news the last few days is the Mercosur offer. We know now that beef is not part of the first negotiations. We don't know what the future holds. What do you think of potential trade openings with South America in your sector?
It's definitely very, very dangerous for our beef production. The cost of production in South America obviously much, much less than we are. New Zealand lamb is much less than we are. And we have to protect our markets here in some way. So it's very essential that we do lobby heavily that we stop this coming in.
Jim Dobson, thank you very much.
Meanwhile, in the rings, competition was fierce for the rosettes awarded throughout the show. We have videos of the Balmoral champions at farmersjournal.tv. In the cattle tent, Irish Farmers Journal reporter William Conlon met Eamon McGarry, a Blonda Aquitaine breeder.
Eamon, you had a successful day today with your cattle.
Yes, with the herd, we're blonde champion and reserve overall blonde champion, so it was a good enough day now.
Yeah, looking in front of me here, there's plenty of rosettes hanging. Is it like this every year? Or?
No, well, this is the first year we've actually won the blonde championship and won the whole thing. That's after 12 years of showing, so it's nice to be done. So it is.
A lot of work has gone in over 12 years.
Oh, serious. Like, you wouldn't know the half of it. Like, the people that will come past and ask you about it and all, and they don't realise how much work you actually put into them.
And are these shows good not just for showing, but to make contacts of potential buyers? And
oh, yes, you would meet a lot of people, hey, and sell a lot of stock through it as well, you know. So it's a good sort of window for you, through to sell the stock, you know.
A lot of talking to farmers and a lot of putting your best foot forward.
Okay, yeah, of course. Like, you definitely meet a lot of nice people, so it's handy enough now.
And does much preparation go into bringing cattle here today? You've a good few stock here today.
we have the 6 here ourselves now, but it takes months. A lot of people will be starting from sort of January on, to get the thing kettle ready, and just it's a lot of work and effort put into them,
It's not just bringing them into the shed and giving them a quick once over with the power washer.
No, definitely not. There's a lot of time and all put into them,
And where did the interest in showing come from?
Well, they always come to the show, and then we had a few blondes ourselves, and we just says that we'll give it a bit of a go and see how we get on,
Well, it's worked out well for you this year, and thanks very much, Eamon.
No problem at all.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
Last Thursday saw another big event take place, this time in Tipperary. Grass and Muck, the big spreading and silage making extravaganza. Our machinery editor, James Maloney, spoke with Donal Fitzpatrick, the president of the FTMTA, which was organising the event.
Donal, I suppose, straight up, what's your favourite machine here today?
Thanks, James. Look, we walked around the show here. Without doubt, the machine I was most interested in looking at was that New Holland, the red New Holland silage harvester with no cab. I reckon it must be about 1970, and it was just lovely to see picking up the grass and tractor and trailer beside it, really self-propelled harvesters. That's where it all came from. Really.
Yeah, and you're working on your own there, Donal. In fairness, there was a good crowd gathered around that demo watching that machine, the old and the new.
Well, I would say it was probably the busiest. It was the busiest demo at that time of the day. The amount of people just staring and watching it, it brings people back to the old days, I suppose.
Yeah, I know. That's an interesting point, Donal. All the work was done with them machines back then. What's changed in agriculture, do you think, now that the machines... We looked at the new Holland harvester, the Cruiser, which is new to Ireland this year. It's about 10 times the size of it, realistically.
Every year, whether it's tractors or harvesters, there's horsepower increases, capacity increases, trailers are getting bigger, and the whole scale of the industry is growing every year, bit by bit. You wouldn't notice it maybe from one year to the next, but over 10 years, even the average horsepower in tractors. I suppose, labour is more expensive. People just want to get through work faster.
Yeah, that's a big point, because most of us, if you're like myself, Donal, you have a part-time job, which is the farm, and not the Farmers Journal, by the way. It's full-time the Farmers Journal. But if you need to work, you have to have reliable machinery, and often the case, a newer machine can be more efficient as well. So it's worth it for people to consider investing in higher horsepower if it makes sense for them.
Well, I suppose in general, people's lives are busier, and people now are looking for better quality silage, and they're looking for it to be inside quicker. And I suppose that leads to contractors being put under serious pressure to get in and get out. Yeah. Years ago, 100 acres a day wouldn't be unheard of. Now, that's standard practice, I guess. If you're not doing that,
it's like lads were telling me when a guy came in to do silage with you years ago. He moved in with you for the week. And now they come in and it's done in the day, and the pit is in and covered down, and they're gone that evening.
Or less than a day, and that's the case. They're doing 2 jobs in a day. Yeah. But it's a big fleet of gear now.
Yeah, and the contractors have invested big money in it.
But they keep the numbers are crazy, and they've got to repay that back. So it's a very challenging industry. We recognise that in the farm machinery industry, because it's very challenging for both farmers and for contractors. And they just need better and bigger machines and more reliable.
Yeah, and if you look at it, Donal, access to funds must be critical for the machinery industry.
Yeah, well, I suppose we've found back, I suppose, since 2008, since the credit crisis began. But I would have to say that in the most cases, I think the Irish banks have been, plus the foreign banks, have been generally very supportive of the farm machinery industry. And I know there may be people that would disagree with me in cases, but I know a little bit about some other industries, and which I would have been sort of involved in peripherally. And definitely, I think that farming was very sustainable, it was very level. I think that farmers and the farming industry generally didn't sort of get caught up in the frenzy of the boom time.
Yeah.
But that left them that it was a very stable,
and they were safer. They were a farmer that had a good repayment capacity, was a safe option. By most of the lenders, they were considered stable lending.
Well, generally, my experience is most farmers would be generally fairly conservative in their borrowings.
Thanks very much, Donal.
A lot of business gets done on shows like Grass and Muck, but they're also a social occasion. James Maloney and Aisling Hussey bumped into contractor John Dan O'Hare and a bunch of tyre kickers.
Here with John Dan O'Hare, I suppose legendary contractor from Northern Ireland, County Down. John, what do you think of the show today?
That was a good show. Well, it turned out good.
Yeah, it was a dodgy start, wasn't it?
It was a bit dodgy this morning, but it's good to see it well turned out.
Yeah.
Good crowd of people and good lot of machinery too, and good show.
And there's not just the new stuff, John Dan, as we have your machine here. What vintage is this model?
Well, that's 2405.
Yeah.
94.
1994.
Oh yeah. We have it rebuilt new.
Oh, very good. And John, how many acres of grass would you think this machine's after picking up for you?
It'd
be hard to tell.
How would you could do 100 acres a day, like depends.
Yeah.
Conditions for half right.
Half right. Yeah. Just, do you still use her on?
Not much.
Not much. A wee bit. When the pressure's on.
Keep her good and try and keep her. Preserve and make her do for it.
Yeah. It looks an excellent
condition.
condition.
It's good to have a machine like that, still in good condition. Still in good shape.
What do you think the biggest change in the forage harvesters have been?
Well, there's more capacity, just more power and more capacity. There's not wild big changes really.
Yeah, just bigger power.
Getting a bit overcomplicated now.
I'm sure
electronics.
I'm sure the electronics are no problem to you, John.
They were fairly straightforward. It wasn't too much.
Very good, John. Look, we'll let you go and enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you. Okay, where are you from? What county are you from?
Roscommon. South Roscommon.
Jesus, Roscommon. Is there any grass in Roscommon? Okay, let's go.
You're going home to cut it, yeah.
What was your favourite machine here today?
Oh, that's not a machine.
They're all lovely.
Something you can afford now.
They're all lovely.
Will you have your jacket anyway if she ain't red lever in the shed?
She was the massive machines in it, and the Coon more was it 3152.
Actually, the Coon can't be baler. That was a good machine because you could they wrapped it differently. They were using less wrap.
Alright.
That was one thing they probably the best thing.
Brilliant.
I suppose.
Yeah, we must go see that now.
And I'm waiting to see this girl going first. But yeah, it's very good.
Did you buy into?
We bought a ticket.
You're only window shopping then, were you?
These are the tyre kickers.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
This week's edition of the Irish Farmers Journal comes with our annual agribusiness supplement published with KPMG. The firm's head of global agribusiness, Ian Proudfoot, was in Dublin to launch the report on Tuesday. He spoke with Thomas Hubert.
You've presented a number of insights here into the industry, broad industry, agri-food, from the producer to the consumer. What is of particular relevance to farmers here in Ireland in those evolutions you identified?
Well, from my perspective, the key for the Irish farmer is to recognise they're producing an incredibly premium product and ensuring that they're putting a focus on delivering that product to premium consumers who are prepared to pay a higher price for it. So that means the sustainability's got to be right behind the story and the whole environmental background to the product, but it's also about bringing innovation and ensuring that you understand what the consumer wants and are solving the consumer problem. Everything has got to start from the consumer if you're going to get more of that share of value.
How do you do that on a farm where you're mostly grass-based here in Ireland? What can you change, or what should you have in mind when you're producing the food to achieve those objectives?
So if you're a grass-based farmer, you have an engine of value inherent in your production system. The grass-fed story is an incredibly powerful story in markets all over the world. The trouble is we haven't told that story. I think that what the industry needs to do is work out how it actually conveys the way it produces product to get that through to the consumer and enable them to understand and appreciate what we're actually delivering. So I think that for a farmer, it's about actually understanding you're the first part of a value chain that goes all the way to the consumer, and recognising that what you produce at your farm gate is not the end of the story but purely the beginning, and therefore ensuring that you have partners along that value chain that are going to bring the value back to you inside your farm gate.
Now, regardless of where you are on this market, How do you see the market itself evolving, and especially dairy markets, which are not in the best shape?
So the markets are volatile. They're inherently volatile. The dairy market at the moment is challenging. There are a number of macro factors. There's the removal of quotas. There's the position in Russia. There's the ability in the United States to produce more food or more milk cheaper than they've been able to produce it before. And then there's the confusion around what's happening in the Chinese supply chain. But the reality is demand for dairy is still growing. And in the end, if we produce the product and tell the story, there will be customers that will be prepared to pay a higher price for the product. So in the end, for me, where we're talking to about farmers in New Zealand, it's about really thinking about the investment you're making, not just in your own farming business, but throughout the whole value chain.
You mentioned Russia in your talk today, and you don't expect the lifting of the embargo to have necessarily a big lifting effect on markets. Why is that?
Because what we're seeing is a lot of work being done by the Russian government to enhance and sustain their domestic agricultural production. They have some of the best soils in the world, they have some of the best agricultural land in the world, they just have not used it in an effective way for over 80 years. So really what they're needing to do now is get to the point where they invest in the whole production, and the government seems to be understanding that. They don't want to come back into the market to the extent they were. And one of the commentators this morning made the comment that the Russian exit from the European market is going to be a far more significant event long term than a British exit from the market.
And finally, what could be a trigger for a bit of improvement in the current prices on dairy markets?
Well, it's hard to see anything in the short term, but the reality is agriculture is inherently volatile. So we have always had events that have come through that have been impacted by the weather, or impacted by biosecurity, or impacted by a disease. And one of those will occur. And the history is now saying that they generally run in 7-year cycles, and we haven't seen anything for a few years now. So, that will be the driver that triggers the market back up again. And it will come back. It's just a matter of when rather than if.
Okay, Ian Proudfoot, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
The event also hosted a debate on Brexit. So what did the people in the audience think? Thomas Chabert asked John Gilliland, farmer and Director of Agriculture at Devonish Nutrition.
What is great, what the Trust has done today, is at least put 3 totally different views on the table as such, and allowed the debate to be informed, particularly around Brexit. The frustration that we have at the moment, there's a lot of people talking about Brexit, but very few people are actually putting hard cases and their hard opinion on the table. Either they're afraid to say it for fear of some kind of backlash, or, it's very emotional. Certainly today, what the Trust has done is at least facilitated people to have better knowledge of the facts. What it did is it started to cut out a lot of the rubbish. For example, it's a great belief in farming in Northern Ireland that if we have Brexit, we will get rid of all red tape. And actually we're being told the opposite here.
What about more long-term issues that were discussed this morning? Other trends such as changes in consumer behaviour, commodity prices cycles, things like that?
For me, the most refreshing presentation today was actually from Ian Proudfoot from KPMG. He lifted our horizons and said, listen, these are a collection of things that are going to happen in the next 5 years, next 10 years, next 15 years. There were a lot of things there hadn't crossed my radar. They're now on my radar, and certainly I thought that was very refreshing.
Did you see any new things, as you said, coming onto your radar today that you think would be impacting Devonish that you didn't know before?
Well, I mean, certainly what Ian's paper re-emphasised, because in Devonish, last year we spent over £30 million in R&D, and that's a massive amount of money for a Northern Irish company. And it absolutely put at the core why that is so important. We will continue to do that. We're actually in that. We're in the food innovation business, using livestock nutrition to improve human health. There are very few companies there, and certainly for us, it just re-endorses our strategy at the moment, is we want to get closer and closer to the consumer, but we want to recognise consumer trends, particularly around human health, and how valuable what we do in the primary food business is to eventually the health of our consumers.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Now, if you're renewing your car insurance these days, you're probably shocked at the price on offer. The hikes are happening across the board, And our consumer editor, Ciara Leahy, has the details in this week's Irish Country Living. She shared her insights with Anthony Jordan.
Ciara, with increases of 30-40% on people's policies, talk to us about the impact that this is having.
Yeah, Anthony, it's no joke. Earlier this year, the CSO confirmed that the cost of insuring a car has jumped by 33.6%. So let's say your policy last year was €550, which would be fairly commonplace. You're now looking at a policy that's costing €729. That's a difference of €179 over the course of a year, which is a massive difference for families' income.
And this is with no claims being made from here to there.
No, absolutely.
If you're driving the same car and there's been absolutely no change in your policy from beginning to when you changed it, why are the prices increasing like this?
You've got the same car, you've made no claims. Basically, between this time last year and today, the application you put in is basically the same. But you can't think about your premium in isolation because insurance doesn't work like that. Insurance means that the cost of risk across the country is shared across the board. That's the very nature of it. And there are varying external factors influencing your premium at the moment. For years, we've actually had an unstable car insurance market in Ireland. We were actually paying too little for car insurance for quite a while. Cast your memory back to 2003. Car insurance averages back then were €905. In 2015 they were 661. So okay, we're complaining that there's been a big hike, but if you compare it to 2003, that's a difference of 27%. Over the last 12 years, prices have actually fallen year in, year out. What actually happened was insurance companies were trying to undercut each other so much that they kept on dropping the prices. They dropped them so much that the prices actually couldn't be sustained. They were selling insurance below cost price, but the figures that we are getting in 2015, they're actually now coming in line with averages in the UK. So this was probably the amount we should have been paying at the start.
And the collapse of Setanta Insurance, that's another issue affecting consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, let's park the unstable market. It's Setanta Insurance. Their collapse last year caused uproar for over 60,000 motorists because they effectively became left with no policy, and it left over €90 million of unpaid claims in its wake. And this is actually affecting motorists today across the board because recently the High Court ruled that the Motor Insurance Bureau of Ireland had to pick up the tab of this instead of the Insurance Compensation Fund. Right, all sounds quite complicated. What does it actually mean for you? The insurance companies, the likes of Aviva, FBT, all of them, they're actually picking up the losses of a competitor who undercut them in the first place. It doesn't happen in other industries. Imagine Tesco going bust in the morning and Dunnes Stores and SuperValu being told that they actually have to pick up those losses. It doesn't happen, and what's happening is those insurance that have survived are passing the cost of those claims down to us through our insurance premiums.
Claims are also going up at the moment. I mean, in terms of affecting consumers, what's the impact?
Okay, so basically, if you have an accident, the amount that you are compensated is increasing substantially. In 2014, there was a change in court limits that increased the maximum claim for a personal injury from €38,000 to €60,000. And across the board, award levels are at an all-time high. For example, the average claim for whiplash is €15,000. Now compare that to the UK where it's 5,000. And whiplash accounts for 80% of claims across the board, whereas in France it only accounts for 3%. I mean, that's a massive difference. Now that may sound well and good if you're the one claiming and getting the 15,000, but the reality is the rest of us are picking up that bill.
So in terms of the future, I mean, what does it hold? I mean, these excessive claims, are they going to continue to bring up the premiums year on year?
Fortunately, it's come to light that some awards are excessive, and recently, I'm talking in the last few months here now, Anthony, 4 motor accident cases were brought to the Court of Appeals, and it was determined that the amounts granted were too much. So in March, for example, one case was reduced from €120,000 to €65,000. When we consider that, we're hoping for some stability going forward. So to do this, one thing that actually has to happen is the Injuries Board has to be strengthened. They have this thing called the Book of Quantum, right? And basically it's a document used by the Injuries Board. There's 2 problems with it at the moment. First of all, it lacks specifics, so it has to be rewritten in a more comprehensive way. And secondly, the AA are lobbying that it should be then binding in courts when it's upgraded. At the moment, the courts just have to have regard for it, which is just far too vague. You know, what we really need is a document that says if you have a broken arm, you're going to be compensated by 18 grand, for example, and for it not to go to 21 or 22 or 23, it should be a standard case across the board. That will plateau things out a bit.
So all the factors that we've been talking about, these are going to point to increases in the future, surely?
Yeah, absolutely. But look, I talked to Conor Faulkland from the AA when I was doing this article. The reasons that we've put forward, they are factors that have reasons behind them, but He also said that while some of these situations are very reasonable, they are showing evidence of complacency, as in the insurance companies. Nobody wanted to put up their prices for years. They wanted to be the lowest, but they had to put them up because of the unstable market. So one shot out of the traps and the rest have followed suit. And they're all kind of using these excuses and raising premiums probably to a rate now that is actually getting too high.
And just finally, Ciara, you're also looking for a few readers to get in contact.
Yeah, look, I had a case study in the article where Reader's Insurance jumped from 568 in 2015 to 734 this year. But, you know, he did do things to bring it down, such as getting rid of his open insurance. We want to hear more from our readers on the ground in regards to their car insurance premiums.
Ciara Leahy, thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app and on iTunes every Thursday. Brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.